podcast you're about to listen to is from a book series on post-qualitative, new materialist and critical post-humanist research. I'm Karen Murris and chief editor of this new Routledge series. You can find it on the following website, www.postqualitativeresearch.com.
Hello, I'm Jocey Quinn, and I'd like to introduce you to my book, Invisible Education, Posthuman Explorations of Everyday Learning. I wrote this book because I know from my research how important the learning we do every day is, beyond schools, colleges or universities. In many ways, the everyday is where the future is being formed, not formal educational spaces. There's already important scholarship on informal learning, but I felt this could be taken much further using critical posthuman ideas. So the concept invisible education came to me to describe everyday learning. Invisible because it is not recognized and even actively ignored. Education because it is powerful and formative in the ways education is supposed to be, but often isn't. To call it invisible education is a polemical act, of course, underlining its force, but also suggesting a category that is diffuse, open-ended, and open to fresh insights. I wrote the book from a critical posthuman perspective, which deconstructs the human as neither normal nor essential, but a figure constructed through a certain lens. It also prioritizes engagement with the structures and inequalities produced by humanism. The book shows how this perspective can be used by working with a number of my research projects. My research focuses on people who are marginalized and excluded, including young people in low-wage jobs, women living in refuges, elders living in care homes, activists, post-verbal people and their carers. Understanding and valuing their everyday learning is an important intervention in the ways they are habitually produced as deficit. The book also uses a range of other knowledge sources, such as memoirs, poetry, fiction, art, and my own diary entries. The book can be used pedagogically in a number of ways. First, it expands the scope of educational research, demonstrating how learning is not a siloed activity, but vital in understanding culture, materiality, and society. I hope it will encourage more adventure amongst those working in education, but also encourage other disciplines to pay attention to learning and foster transdisciplinarity. Second, the book provides a theorisation of invisible education that helps to clarify the process and can be used by other researchers. I use Kathleen Stewart's work on affects and Karen Barad's on New Worlds to develop it. I theorise that invisible education is an involuntary but meaningful response that happens when engaged in everyday life and activities and the problems and questions they provoke. I argue that the new worlds that are constantly being created are learning worlds suffused with learning affect. Third, the book shows how posthuman perspectives can be used in empirical research and that it's not simply abstract or theoretical. It shows the possibilities, but also the problems and limitations of this approach when put to work. Fourth, the book is an example of how multiple knowledge sources can be used to shed light on each other, encouraging researchers to write experimentally and creatively. Finally, the book provides a critique of the prevailing neoliberal discourse of social mobility, replacing this with the idea of future mutabilities. This is a useful counter to use when thinking about change, which stays with the trouble rather than depending on a fantasy of escape from inequality. There is much more to say, but I hope that this introduction will encourage you to read the book. If you do, thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy it.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. If you would like to know more about this chapter, please visit the website www.postqualitativeresearch.com, and please stay tuned for future podcasts.